Hownd is a foot traffic generation platform. We help get consumers in the door for brick and mortar merchants. We specialize in the experiential sector of retail. So these are experiences that consumers like to have outside of their home. This might be going out to a restaurant or going to get an ice cream or a massage or a haircut, or going to a roller skating rink with their kids or with their friends, or a bowling alley or small amusement park or museum or something like that. And we help basically get those consumers in by sending targeted promotions to those consumers across multiple channels like email, social media, websites, Wi-Fi, and screens. Leading up to starting Hownd, there's a problem that I'd seen through a number of the different companies I had worked for prior. I'd worked with Reputation.com, and then another company that was doing something somewhat in the similar space as Hownd, trying to solve problems for small businesses around like just basically getting people in the door, but they were taking circuitous routes to do that. This is Reputation.com is like trying to solve for your reputation online. And like the core problem that the small business owner was really trying to face is ultimately just getting people to walk through the door. And yeah, do you need a good reputation online? Sure, that's helpful. But that's not ultimately, just because you have a good reputation doesn't mean that you're going to get that customer in the door. So I wanted to try to solve that problem. Like this is a core problem small business owners have, which is just how do I get my consumer to walk through my door? And then the secondary problems they have is that they don't have any time and they don't have any expertise. And like they know their business really well, like the classic E-Myth entrepreneur. If you've remember the old E-Myth book, the E-Myth entrepreneur, they know their business really well, but like all the ancillary stuff they don't, and they don't have time to go and learn it. And so we wanted to solve that problem, and ultimately that's the problem I wanted to solve. Like, how can I help the core problem of a small business owner while doing it in a way that doesn't create additional problems for them down the line? So we took a different approach. I say we because I'm like there's a we now, but when I was starting, there was no we, right? It was just me. So I took a different approach to getting things started. The first one was, I'm not a technical founder, so my background is in product development, but also in sales and growth and business development. And so that's really my core focus. So I knew that I either needed a technical co-founder or I needed to take a different path. So I took a different path. The company I mentioned that I worked for before, not immediately prior to starting Hownd, but the company a couple months back, they had gone out of business. I'd kind of helped oversee the wind down of that business. And so I knew the former investors pretty well. And just decided, I thought, look, the technology that they had, it was misplaced and misused, but the technology they had was at least enough for me to get started, and I could start selling it and putting a different messaging and eventually evolve it into what I had as the long-term vision, could evolve that product. And so I went and approached the old investment group that had originally invested in the company that built the product. And they were, willing to sell it, and so I bought that asset. I didn't have any money either, so I didn't have any cash. But I bought that asset with a convertible note. Basically said, "Hey, look, here's some debt in the business that'll convert to equity in the future when we raise a round or we sell the business." And so that was our technical start to the business. And so technically, somebody else spent a couple of years building the core platform, and then we were able to take that core platform and get it running in about a month to two. I was able to start selling and generating some early MRR within about 2 months of starting the company. So the growth has been great. Leading up into COVID, because there's like a big giant blocker that is COVID in our growth to some extent. But leading up to COVID, we had doubled year over year in revenue. So things were really solid up until 2019. We had just launched our new version of our platform. We had gone through a rebranding to Hownd. We were a different name when I first started the business, and kind of new business revenue model and new go-to-market. And so things were really in this evolutionary shift and really accelerating. And then COVID happened. And one other aspect of our platform, not only do we generate foot traffic for these brick and mortar merchants and experiences, we also had a new revenue model that was built around only paying for results, meaning when somebody walks in the door, we are only going to charge them when somebody walked in the door. Well, when COVID happens, obviously when A, nobody can walk through the door, and B, nobody's walking through the door for experiential merchants, like they're going through the door maybe for groceries or the toilet paper or something, like our revenue completely like flip-flopped and we lost 80% of our revenue overnight. Anyway, that's a whole separate problem. That being said, despite our revenue growth taking really taking a major step back, our unit growth accelerated. So we grew our total number of rooftops on our platform by 250% in last year. So our rooftop growth accelerated even faster than we had seen the prior years, but our revenue per rooftop was like significantly lower, like almost 20-30% what it was pre-COVID. And so, we've continued to grow our rooftop base, and that's been fantastic. And now it's a matter of just catching up on revenue again as things are reopening and consumers are beginning to visit again and businesses are beginning to open. I would have answered this in a completely different way before COVID. There's any number of challenges. One is just finding, hiring the right people, making sure you've got a solid culture. Capital is still always a challenge, right? So growth capital, learning how to communicate your value proposition to potential investors and, building that pipeline. Like there are any number of challenges. There's like little mini roadblocks that come up. There's like product hiccups and things right. So there's just all the normal challenges of growing any business. But for us, we were already burning quite a bit of cash coming into COVID. We were, had a team of just under 45. We had just signed a new lease to a new building, with the expectation of growing. We were just starting our Series A in March of last year, and starting that process to go and raise a Series A. And then everything happened, and we lost 80% of our revenue overnight. And so again, like what would have been considered challenges completely shifted. And last year was unquestionably the most difficult year of my entire life. And not just the most difficult year of the business of my entire life. Having to go through multiple rounds of layoffs and ask people to defer pay and going back to vendors who, you had developed great relationships with and trying to develop like leverage those positive relationships to put a stay on accounts payable and like going back to lenders and negotiating forbearance agreements and like any number of crazy things that I've had to do just to keep the business going and growing in the midst of all of that, shifting go-to-market strategies, et cetera. So like there are a lot of micro challenges as a result and some really big challenges as a result of COVID, but like it can all be encapsulated into the fact that we were a foot traffic generation platform that you pay for results in the midst of a pandemic that doesn't allow people to walk in the door, and we can't bill for results. So, we were ironically like the two worst things we could have chosen to do in a global pandemic, we did, and that creates its challenges. We've had phenomenal growth over the last year, like despite, again, rooftop growth, not revenue growth, but over the last year, I think especially with the core team that's here, and this isn't to say anything about the ones I had to lay off, right? But there's certainly some who've left along the way of their own accord, would have loved to have them on the team. But I'd say the ones that are still here, like just to see the camaraderie that's been developed. We went from 45 to 17 on the team, and we call our values internally, our principles, we call them esprit de corps, so the spirit of the body, and we adhere to those pretty fanatically internally. And just to see the esprit de corps like visibly evident every single day by the people on our team. Even the ones again that like they were pushing through in the summer, and we're like when things were really bad, and we're having to do layoffs, and like the people we're laying off were like perfect, like exhibiting esprit de corps even during the layoff. Like, oh my gosh, this is the right thing for the team. And like, we are supportive of Hownd and where you're going. And like, I'm sorry it didn't work out with us. Like, I think just to see the foundation that we laid really early on at the beginning of the company come through and be so evident during this time, I think is, it's not a single achievement, but I think it's been one of the shining, shining achievements, I guess, that we collectively have been able to do, despite everything, still have that as that strong base. I would say I was fortunate enough to, I can't even remember how I got connected with Brandon Clark back in the day. I say back in the day, it's like 2017, early 2017. We had just started in 2016 when the first cohort, I think was, they had their first cohort of people in the startup collective. And so we were part of the second cohort and somehow got connected and was I say fortunate because being a part of the Startup AZ collective community has been foundational for me personally, as a CEO going through some of these issues, and as a founder going through some of these issues, having other founders to talk about things with, and also just to learn from the entrepreneurs in residence, to be supported by just everybody that's really invested into the collective, both the board level, Startup AZ Foundation, but then also like, all the founders who've been a part of it and maybe have moved on. Just to be a part of that community has been so incredibly positive. Again, from practical elements of like learning things and bringing in speakers and people who can help educate us on ways to run our business better, all the way to just the support system that exists by being with other founders, dealing with the issues that they have, and just even learning vicariously through them and their own struggles as well as sharing my own. So, it's been fantastic. So I would say, I don't know if there's anything that surprised me based on like the structure of it, to some extent. I've been a part of other like business, like what are they called? Mastermind groups, that kind of thing. But the one difference is, and I think the one thing that I really appreciate is that we're all SaaS or technology founders. And so there's a general understanding of like metrics, how we run the business. And I think that was probably the biggest, not a surprise, but a little bit, it was like, oh my gosh, how nice it is to be in a room with others who are dealing with some of the same problems at just different stages, or have some of the same metrics, and we can speak a common language. There's obviously value in like talking to, being in a group with a lawyer and a construction person and other things, like value in learning from other industries, but also having that community where we all just know our businesses very well and like our type of business. It makes some of the conversation more seamless and smooth. That is a massively loaded question. So we have a pretty extensive product and go-to-market roadmap, some pretty cool, exciting things that we'll be announcing over the next few months, and there'll be a pretty solid cadence of good stuff coming out of Hownd, both at the product level and also some other strategic partnership announcements. So pretty excited about that. I think really what we're doing is taking advantage of we made a recent acquisition of a company out of Australia, Power Local. And so just bringing that team, they're a really solid team. The two founders over there are amazing. So bringing that team into the fold, and then just blending the two companies and rolling out, that'll be a big component of what we're doing and our focus over the course of this next quarter, and taking advantage and leveraging that acquisition. But no, we have a lot of stuff coming, and what I'll say is, bottom line, Hownd is really looking to, we want to be the company that mediates and helps curate experiences for consumers, and help them to come in and experience those things at brick and mortar local merchants. And so the steps that we'll be taking over the course of the next 3 to 24 months are really focused on moving down that path, not just generating foot traffic, but also curating experiences for consumers and building that relationship between the consumer and the merchant, and making that healthy. And so anyway, that's some of the stuff that you'll see coming out. There's actually 2 bits of advice. One, just don't think small. Think about how you can really change the world with what you're doing. There's a lot of value in building a lifestyle business. There's a lot of value in building something that you build over a couple of years and sell. So don't hear the wrong thing there. But also think about how can you take what you're doing and make it massive. How can you take what you're doing and find a way to invent something new, invent a new category, or that's how you really make a big impact. And especially in an Arizona ecosystem, we need more of those who are really looking at creating those category defining companies. And so I would say just don't hold back with your own creativity. Then the second tier to that is, as you're pursuing that, don't sometimes be worried about imposter syndrome, or that you're not the right person to go and do this, or how are you going to be able to overcome this problem. Just keep pushing, just keep going. Don't stop, don't slow down. And you will get to the other side.